Hi, everyone. I'm Gary Berman, the host of the Cyber Hero Adventures Show. Thanks so much for taking the time out of your crazy schedules to join us. You're probably wondering what this thing is behind me hanging up. Well, that's my superhero costume. And you'll probably hear a little bit more about why a 63-year-old man has wandered into the digital universe using a superhero costume. Well, but before that, we're going to have some incredibly interesting conversations with thought leaders like Evgeniy Kharam. Hey, Evgeniy.
Hey Gary, how are you? Nice to be on the show. I don't have a superhero costume, but I'll try my best.
Well, you do have a light bulb in your background. Is that because you come up with great ideas, or?
Usually I come up with great ideas. Not everybody thinks they're great ideas, but eventually we decide that they're great. It takes some time until we get there.
Okay, just to be clear, let me do the humor, and then you do cybersecurity, so we stay in our lanes.
Got you. I'll try my best. I'm not usually very well in staying in the same lanes, but I'll do my best.
Actually, for a solutions architect, you are incredibly funny. And to our audience, I can tell you firsthand, he's a great guy. He has a great podcast. What's your podcast?
The podcast called Security Architecture Podcast, something we started with Dimitri almost a year ago.
And how's it going?
It's going very well. We do seasons. We are finished today, actually, season 2, talking about remote access, and we're going to start season 3, talking about application security in a couple of weeks.
Wow, that sounds like a lot of fun.
It is. You're more welcome to join.
I am in. I'm in. If you need someone who is genuinely interested but has no idea what he's talking about, I'm your guy.
We don't have this segment, but it's a very interesting idea. I definitely run by the listeners and see if we want someone like this on the show.
Yeah, no, thanks for sure. So share a little bit of your origin story, which is a term we use in our superhero comic creation world. Like, how did you get to this moment of being, such an important and well-respected thought leader?
Thank you. I actually did 2 immigrations. I used to live in Ukraine, that used to be USSR. Then I moved of age of 11, I moved to Israel, spent 16 years there, did high school, spent 5 years in the Navy. I started my IT career in the Navy. And when I graduated the Navy, if you can ever graduate Israel Army, I went to work for Check Point. And Check Point was the beginning of my career in cybersecurity. I learned quite a lot about how stuff work in a very fundamental layer. Then I moved to Canada to visit my sister. I actually came visit my sister, not moved yet. And I found Herjavec Group. And a gentleman you're probably going to introduce later on made a mistake, or not a mistake, to hire me. And I stayed with Herjavec Group for 14 years.
All right, good. We caught Sean laughing. All right, that's a good sign. Is that laughing, like crying from laughing?
I'm just crying about it.
Well, I have to tell you something. I said earlier that you have to earn this, but you just did. Welcome to the One Club.
So I'll tell you a little quick story about when I joined Herjavec Group. We always talk about you joining a new company. You have a training pass. People give you all these nice documents. You have somebody to mentor you. So I coming to Canada, me and Sean going to do our first engagement for me. He explained to me how stuff real work in the real environment, not just in the labs that I used to have. I'm like, okay, this sounds okay. I know what I'm doing. I think so. Week passed. He's like, here, Evgeny, go to this customer. He's like, what do you mean go to this customer? Go and do upgrade for the firewalls. What do you mean go? He's like, yes, you go. Like, myself? Yes, yourself. He's like, what about training? Done. It's it. You graduated.
Wow, that's really funny. And obviously the two of you are, good buddies. So let's introduce Sean. Hey, Sean, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Gary.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your origin story. What's that cool stuff you have behind you? All those little items. What is that?
Oh, lots of interesting things. The Saturn V Lego rocket. I was a child of the '60s, so I was thrilled to watch them launch and go to the moon. I have the lunar lander here, and this is actually the Apollo 11. So that's Buzz Aldrin on the ladder doing some fancy thing, because that's what Buzz Aldrin does.
Wow.
I also have my alma mater up here, Purdue University. So, just lots of different memories up there on the shelves.
So let's talk about space. You must be just incredibly excited about what's happening on Mars.
Yeah, it is very interesting, especially that they just had the first, what did they call it? The first
Helicopter.
No, I know it's a helicopter, but they said the first helicopter on a foreign planet, I guess, is what they termed it.
Is it a helicopter or it's a drone?
Helicopter.
Helicopter, I guess. They called it helicopter. I don't know. It's the first flight off another planet. So, yeah, it was pretty exciting.
We did a show recently about space. I do a lot of work on our show with the various ISACs. IT ISAC, healthcare, in the space. And we had this amazing guy on the show named Sam Vissner, who used to be the head of, I think, signal intelligence for NSA, and an incredibly high-level guy, but his whole passion is space. I want to do a series because space, the final frontier.
Yeah, that'd be very cool. Yes.
Yeah. So let's. Wait a minute. We have some breaking news here. According to Cybercrime Magazine, cybercrime to cost the world $10.5 trillion with a T annually by 2025. Are you kidding me? What is this all about, gentlemen?
The cyber criminals are trying to make more and more money just from, that's what it's all about. They're not doing this just for fun. It used to be that these hackers would just try and break into things just because they said they could do it, but it's turned into a business. And ransomware has been at the top of that pack. Ransomware really took off this year, especially with all the people working from home. It really was a leverage thing.
Yeah, if you review, it's funny, Sean, you mentioned business. If you actually read about these businesses, they have HR, they have their benefits plan, healthcare.
Oh, yeah.
It's very good business.
One of the first characters that we invented was Wilbur WannaCry. Based off of WannaCry. And now it just seems to be going, nuts. They're hitting everything, and small to medium businesses are sitting ducks, aren't they?
Yeah, it's so easy for them because they just send an email is typically the way that it gets in, and all it takes is one person clicking the wrong link, and if you don't have the protection, it filters through your environment like a virus very quickly.
So speaking of that, using kind of a metaphor that Evgeniy has sent me, here's the way that he likes to talk about what we're talking about now. Using this metaphor of, I guess, how do you eat an elephant, or how do you know what it is? Evgeniy, tell us what we're looking at here.
So there's multiple ways to describe cybersecurity. I really like this metaphor because if you bring, let's say, a blind person to touch an elephant, they will touch each part of the elephant, and each of them will say, cybersecurity, it's a leg, it's a trunk, it's a ear. It's a part of it. And majority of the time when we're talking to people, they will speak about the area of expertise that they are expert in. But it's much more complex. There's a lot of stuff that going into cybersecurity. When we spoke, Gary, this week, you mentioned about like a spaceship that has multiple different levels. I actually like to explain this as a Tetris or 3D Tetris, because there are so many different parts, and it could be architecture, it could be pen testing, that people think this is the only thing is in cybersecurity, unfortunately. It could be governments, compliance. There's really, really a lot of important things. And now with AI coming, now we're going to have laws about what you can or cannot do, and also where the information is sitting. So it's much more complex than only one or two subjects.
Well, let me build on something you just said about AI. Coincidentally, I'm going to pop up on the screen here. Something that we're launching. We had on our show recently the technical advisor, the main kind of author of a report submitted to the United States Congress about from the National Security Commission on artificial intelligence, and that show generated so much interest, throughout our ecosystem for all the reasons,
It
better.
was AI interest or real people?
AI interest and cybersecurity people, because
How do you know it was not a bot?
Okay.
He's staying out of his lane now. He's out of his lane.
Evgeniy, I'm like a volunteer, right? Like, why are you giving me grief? You should take that back. I don't know if it was a bot or not, but what I can tell you is that I've interacted with real people, who are very mission-driven people, to be sure. And what we're doing is we're going to have a series of micro think tanks, one per month, with thought leaders, where we use this 756-page report as the framework for a one-year series of in-depth analysis into aspects of the report aligned with CISA's critical infrastructure sectors. Like I said earlier, AI in healthcare, AI in automotive, AI, like that kind of thing. So, what is the role of AI, Sean, according to your perspective of where things stand? I've heard all kinds of things about this. No one really seems to have certainty.
Yeah, I think AI is just today, it's more of a buzzword. I think that we're using it to help us make better decisions, but I don't think we really understand the better decisions that we want from it yet. I think it's a selling term in a lot of cases. Say, hey, we have AI in our technology, so more people are getting connected to it. There is some cool things, but I'm not sure we're at the promise of AI is going to solve a lot of things. It still needs a lot of care and feeding to make sure, it's detecting the right things. You still need that supervision today.
Yeah, and this is an interesting kind of way to show some of the complexity, of what you're referring to. Take us through what we're looking at here.
You look at a diagram of potential architecture with the customer, mainly 2 years ago, a year ago, before COVID, before people work from home. It's still relevant for these days as well, of course. And every name you see on the architecture is potentially a solution or a vendor or multiple vendors. And if you can bring the picture back for a second, you may see 15, 20, 25, even more different devices or vendors. When we talk with enterprise customers or large enterprise customers, they may have 50, 60, 100, 140, 150, or even 200 different vendors in their portfolio.
Wow. Wait, let me just hang on to that thought just for a moment. So why would an enterprise organization...
It was basically you buy two, you get one for free. I think this was the deal.
No, I think you're probably joking, right? I mean, I think that's funny. Is it true?
No. It's because there's different departments of the business. It could be network security, endpoint security, identity security, cloud security, vulnerability management. There's a lot of different parts, and a lot of different vendors could be there. So if let's take network security, for example, under network security, it could be from 10 to probably 20 different sub-segments: firewall, IPS, URL filtering, intrusion prevention, your browser isolation, DLP, quality of service, and many, many more. And depending on the company, you may have a solution for each.
Wow.
So if you're a bank and you want best of breed of everything, you may have so many different solutions.
But I mean, it seems to me, and maybe you can shed some light on this, that the interoperability of these various solutions, could cause friction, or there might be redundancies, of different solutions. Is that a valid sort of premise?
Definitely, because you may buy a license for your firewall that will include a license for something else, like URL filtering, for example. You can have URL filtering may include license for firewall in some cases, depending on the solution. Or you may buy a DLP solution that will include URL filtering. and I don't want to mention vendors right now. We, for example, in some of our workshops, will encounter a customer that will have one solution to do URL filtering to block where you're going, but then 4 different other solutions that has the license, but you're not using them.
Wow. And I mean, it just seems difficult to keep track of all of this. Is that true?
That's definitely very true. I mean, we've, as Evgeniy says, we've done workshops with clients because, they've got big spends and, they got all these tools and every tool keeps adding new features. And then they end up with overlapping and the customer doesn't know. Because once you get sold the technology, the vendor's like, great, just keep renewing. Just keep renewing. They're not worried about you using all the additional features. They should be, but some are very good at that. And some are just like, no, just renew. And then you end up with lots of overlap in the technologies. I mean, we were with one company, and we saved them $1 million just because we looked at it and says, wait a second, these 4 technologies, you could replace them with one and get everything. And so you're saving a whole bunch of money.
I mean, like speaking of sort of saving money and stuff, one of the interesting things that I saw, I'm going to pop up on the screen for you, is that you're vendor agnostic, right? Is that's accurate?
That's accurate. And, I think one of the key things that, we like to tell our clients or prospective clients is that, look, first off, we are 100% cybersecurity focused. That's all we do. We live, eat, and breathe it. And we cover the breadth of cybersecurity. Evgeniy was talking about earlier on that the breadth of cybersecurity is so wide. I mean, when I started cybersecurity was antivirus and firewalls. That was it. And now we're worried about identity, access management, all kinds of other things along the way that, weren't really concerned about back then. People didn't know what to be afraid of.
And if you ask the engineers in a company, they will always tell you, oh, we definitely need this piece of equipment. Well, no, we cannot remove it. But when you go to senior management, so you have vendor A, vendor B, vendor C, and you pay X, Y, Z. Do you care? Do you understand the difference? Like, not really. We trust our engineers. Do you know if there's an overlap between them? Not until you told me.
Wow.
How often? An interesting part that people don't do, and it's just a lot of time because they don't have time, they don't go back to the vendors and say, Mr. Vendor, give me your roadmap for next 6 months or a year. I want to understand what you're going to introduce to me and why it's important. Because you may have a project to buy a piece of technology or fix a particular problem, but the vendor you already have may introduce this feature in the next release.
Yeah.
Or you have a different department that already bought that technology that you don't know about. In these big companies, you got so many damn silos.
Well, yeah. I mean, look at what Max is, adding to the conversation about that. Quadrupled. I mean, that's incredible, Max. Thanks for that insight. And plus, there's another thing that to me was really, kind of mind blowing, which is the turnover of CISOs. It's something like I've heard 18 months.
18 months, yeah.
I mean, so just think about that for a minute. So that person comes in, gets it the way they want it, and then they leave. God forbid there's a breach, or they just get paid more money because folks at your level are needles in the haystack. How does that contribute to this sort of confusion of what to buy and what we have?
Well, I think as the CISO changes, the direction changes, what they're focusing on. They may have said, okay, we've got to go focus on, the perimeter. Let's secure the perimeter. And the next guy comes in, no, it's the endpoint. It's the endpoint. The next guy comes in, no, it's data protection. And in some of those, it takes a little bit longer to really get to the maturity level that you need. Data protection's a big one for that.
Yeah, we just flashed up a rapid responder, kind of our back call to see if anyone's going to jump in on the stream. We're really lucky. We have all kinds of smart people who can talk about all kinds of things. So we'll see if someone will jump in on that. So let's delve a little bit further into some of the stuff that you do. Like everyone knows Herjavec from the amazing stuff on Shark Tank. Well, let me ask you about that. Considering he may watch this broadcast and it is live. What's it like, sort of working, with such an amazing guy and at least depicted on television?
Well, I've known him for just a couple of years.
If you don't want to say it, that's okay.
He is definitely a very driven guy, and that's the title of his first book, which I helped him name. So he is always looking for what's next. When we started Herjavec Group, George Frempong, Robert, and myself, the idea was it'd be great to run a $50 million company. And then 3 or 4 years in, we're getting past 50. He's already talking 100. So he's always looking, what's next? What's next? Keep us going forward. Wow. Always pushing us to move forward and to do it as fast as possible. Kenny?
He also have his hand on a pulse, like you really understand the market, and he wants to do the stuff that makes sense right now and will help the customers right now. So it's always a balance between developing and also doing the work right now and helping customers right now. And being in Herjavec Group, you have this amazing opportunity to work with many different vendors, many different customers. It's a very fast-paced environment, I guess, driven, car racing, all around fast. If you're not going fast enough, you're probably not trying, or you have too much control. Yeah, so this is definitely one part of working in Herjavec Group and working with Robert as well.
Wow, that's interesting. And speaking of moving really fast, let's introduce to our audience Scott Schober, the wireless warrior. Hey, Scott, how you doing?
Hey, how you guys doing there?
Good. Scott.
Great conversation. I've been listening in the background here.
Yeah, and so Scott, what do you think about what you've heard so far?
Well, certainly it's very intriguing, and I do appreciate, I think, the approach that Herjavec Group takes, and it's kind of almost a holistic approach where they're looking at cybersecurity architecture, and that's almost like the base or the foundation of an organization, and it's got all these different components, as I think they well said. It's not too many people look at one narrow aspect of it, instead of looking at maybe the broader picture so they could secure everything from the network, the cloud, the endpoints. Mobile is a huge part. IoT is a huge part. In fact, when I had the privilege of sitting down with Robert Herjavec and did a half-hour interview with him, we touched a lot on that aspect of mobile and IoT. Had some really good insight there, because I think, as you mentioned, he tends to think very forward, and really the whole Herjavec Group team is thinking forward. And that's what I think is so important. Too many companies are almost looking back and doing damage control. You have to deal with what's here and now, the threats, address them, but also have that forward looking so you could stay ahead of that curve, because you're really thinking about your customers. Same thing in my business. I'm thinking about my customers. We focus in on wireless threat detection tools. So we're always thinking not just 4G right here, which is hot now, but what's 5G? What's after that? That is critical, I think, for every organization that is supporting the cybersecurity infrastructure to keep their customers safe. That's really paramount.
Yeah, and Michael wrote something really great here. Very good insight. Everyone is a rapid responder. I mean, what do you guys think about this? Thanks, Michael.
Well, you hope everybody's a rapid responder. I mean, the other part is everybody's got to be in security, because, it's not so much what Evgeniy, I, or Scott can do. It's what, Bob in accounting does. Sorry, Bob. Bob made a comment. So it's what Bob in accounting does that, can affect the impact of security in your organization. He says, I didn't do a FedEx shipment, but I'm going to click on this link anyways and see what the invoice is. So,
and if something pop-ups, the question, does Bob go and say, okay, I'm going to hide, or I'm going to actually report and tell about this? Because unfortunately, people are like, oh, I made a mistake, something happened. I better not to tell anyone and maybe just disappear.
Well, maybe it didn't really do anything.
Well, let's unpack that then. It's commonly referred to as the human element. That was the name of an RSA conference a year ago, or so. So, what do we do with that?
I think training.
But it's got to vary too.
It has to be safe. Can you repeat that?
It's got to vary because you can't hit them with the same training all the time because they start saying, "Oh, I've already had this."
It's funny you said that, and none of this was planned, but that was part of our mission, to distill complicated technology information into superhero comics, so people can get their heads around it and just get engaged and stuff. And here's kind of a world premiere. We've just done a joint venture with an Israeli company who's using 3D to bring our characters to life. This is Phoebe the Fisher.
I'm Phoebe Fisher. The Fisher hunts its prey by pretending to be legitimate communication from a trusted company or from the hijacked identity of a friend, colleague, or family member. Using one of many ruses, the Fisher encourages the potential victim to divulge sensitive information such as login IDs, passwords, PINs, social security numbers, etc. This information is quickly used to steal money from accounts and to apply for fraudulent loans and credit cards.
That's very cool.
And how cool is that?
Very cool. Very cool. You just need to give one of the dolls to everyone, and they will speak on the side. Every time when you click an email, she will ask you, do you really want to click this email or no? Everything will be solved.
For our audience, this was not planned what Evgeniy just said, but it's exactly our intention. Because you can, when Phoebe's done, she's just a prototype. In her quiver, she'll have a harpoon for whale fishing. She'll have a spear for spear fishing. She'll have a fishing rod for spray and pray. And the script that we're working on right now is called Working Anywhere. And we're actually going to have the characters, flying, the villains, let's see, Wilbur WannaCry, Ivan the ID Thief, and Phoebe in this first prototype. And it's all about how to educate people how to take basic cyber hygiene steps to stay safe wherever they work. And it's going to be with those disposable 3D glasses. So it brings
that's even cooler.
Yeah, that could be branded like General Motors, whatever. But also, it's interactive. Like when you look, in a certain way, it triggers this interactive training. So super cool. And Michael Kirby here just wrote, a number of people are talking about the importance of training and monitoring. What is Herjavec's capability or about training and monitoring? Is that part of your offerings?
Training, not so much. I mean, we set people up. There are great companies that do automated training that have done a great job with that for cybersecurity awareness. We're outstanding on a monitoring point. We monitor big companies' SIMs, which is basically a data repository of everything that's happening in their environment, and look for activities that don't seem just right. We may not catch the person clicking the link, but once that link gets clicked, it starts to do different things in the environment, and that's what we're looking to catch.
And we're collecting information from all these different devices to Sean point to actually understand what happened, why it happened. In a lot of the cases, we want to see if it happened to one person or happened to many people. And when it happened to many people, it becomes even more important because we know that something much bigger going on. And then you go into rapid response, because if we see something happened, we have the SLA and we want to respond as quick as possible. This way we help the customer to actually minimize or remove the damage completely or minimize the damage very, very quickly.
Yeah, and as you see, Josh, hi, Josh. So glad you're here to join us. We're actually partnering with Josh Jackson in his role as executive director of the AI Association on our micro think tanks. John, you're welcome. Josh, you're welcome to join the stream. If you want, he's just a great guy, and we made a decision yesterday that we're going to be friends. It's not a requirement to be a guest on my show. But I am sort of lonely. I'm like, I guess everyone is, now with COVID, but it's getting better, I hope.
So I want to jump in, Gary, if I can, just to build on their points, because I think it was a brilliant point. The ability that Herjavec Group and other companies have when they're monitoring for breaches, and they could be very proactive, the incident response then is critical if they can react quickly. Because when you react quickly, you think about some of the big breaches that we're all familiar with. When you react quickly, you could recover possibly any type of damage or compromised IP, critical information, really operation time, and then of course reputational damage. The longer that things drag out, the more it affects the bottom line, which affects the shareholders, the company, the brand, so on and so forth. So I think that approach, the reaction time to incident response, is really important to be working with the correct company so that you can really save the bottom line, because otherwise it's too late. And a lot of companies have gone under when they've partnered with the wrong organization, let's say.
Well, and I think just to jump on that is, having that plan in place, because there's always going to be something that you can't handle as an organization. And just making sure you have that you can pick up that bat phone and call the right people to say, hey, I've got a problem, come. And they'll be there. It's knowing those procedures and processes to say, okay, it's over my head, I know who to call.
And I want to add to Sean's comment. It's not just to call someone, because you need agreements. You need the lawyers to agree with you. Yeah. So you cannot just call Evgeniy, Sean, Scott, and say, guys, come over. If we don't have MSA or any other agreement that tell you I can actually work for you, approved by your legal department, I legally cannot come and help you. And what we advise a lot of the companies we are working with, to create an IR plan, to create a retainer, to sign the documents in advance. Because if they want someone and need someone, doesn't matter what time, they want to make sure everything is ready for them to just call someone and have the help they need.
Yep.
Well, is it a valid kind of premise that the large, enterprises, they do these what are referred to as tabletop exercises, and an expansion of that, that goes into what you're talking about, having things, in place. I can envision that enterprises, do that. But what about small to medium businesses? They may. I've just got the feeling they're sitting ducks. Is that true? Or do SMBs also plan? They certainly seem to need to.
Well, unfortunately, it's probably just a guy or two in the small businesses, and he's wearing many hats. So my advice to them is, again, just have somebody, as Evgeniy said, somebody you can call, somebody who can be there in a quick period of time. So that means having an agreement signed in place, or whatever legal stuff you need to do to make sure that they will show up when you need them.
I was writing in a blog about risk recently, didn't publish it yet, and I have this analogy about, we all know about fire, and we all do fire training every month, every quarter, every 6 months, in a condo, in the buildings, everywhere. Everybody know what to do. They need to get out and take the stairs. But we still do them because we want to make sure people understand, people remember. We want to check that we don't have too crowded stairs, we have enough ventilations there, and all this stuff. It's not different than table topics. You do them to understand what kind of surprises you will have. You understand what's changed. Is the marketing person will know what to do? Do you know where to call the lawyer? There's many things that can come up. This is why you do training. And I think the best example is the Army. The Army do drills all the time.
Yeah. I think the other thing to add, if I can, a lot of big companies and small businesses make the mistake of thinking about, well, I'll just get cyber insurance and that'll make the problem go away. If and when I'm ever breached or compromised, I'll call my agent, problem solve. And that's not a good approach to it, because even when you do have cyber insurance, which I do recommend everyone get, you have to balance it and understand what are your risks. And what are you protecting? Is it critical IP? Is it customer information, proprietary information, whatever it is? You need to identify kind of all the crown jewels, as they say, the valuable things in your company. That's important. And then you balance or mitigate the risks with some insurance also. But the part everybody always forgets about is, are you implementing all these best practices throughout your organization? If you are, then hopefully you don't have to worry about getting breached and compromised, and you'll never have to call the insurance guy and say, hey, we've got a problem. We've just been a victim of a ransomware attack or whatever, which is very common for small businesses.
Well, you also want to make sure that, what does the cyber insurance cover? It's the same thing with automobile insurance. What are you covered for? If you get a chip on your windshield, is that covered, or are you paying for the whole windshield? You can't just assume I have insurance, it's covered. Make sure you know what's in that contract.
Yeah.
I mean, sorry,
yeah.
Again, just 1 second to build on that point, of cyber insurance. I had heard recently, we had a guest on the show saying that a hack, ransomware was not an act of war and was excluded from the policy or something like that. Is that a common thing where they have all these exclusionary things and you don't know what you have when the attack happens?
I'd say yes. I think no.
Yeah. You've got to really understand your policy.
I want to just finish. Explain all of that. That's the other important thing. So they'll educate you what is covered and not covered, to Sean's point. So you need to pick the right provider and sit down with them, make sure they understand it, and clearly explain what's covered and not covered.
Evgeniy, sorry for the interruption.
Yeah, I wanted to build on Scott and Sean's point. With something happened and you call your insurance company, there's one important part that you may forget. If something happened and you're not available, or your business is not available, and you're not providing service to your customer, you're effectively losing money, quite a lot of money. And this money can potentially bring you down as a business. It doesn't matter what you get later. Yeah.
No, for sure. And Bob's writing, a very important thing here. What's the discussion and focus today about the DLP market and options for organizations? So thanks for that, Bob. We tend to be a little more free flowing and, and casual in our discussions and stuff, but it's very important that we accomplish the mission. So let me pop that question up there again. How do you answer, Bob?
DLP market is evolving, definitely. 15 years ago, DLP was there, but people was having hard time to implement this because it was just too hard, and we also didn't had enough compute to run it correctly, especially on the endpoints. Right now, with the move to the cloud, with using of the SaaS applications, we have a lot of the data there, and in some ways, it's became easier to understand where is the data and control the data. I'm not saying it's easy, I say easier, because there are still quite a lot of things you need to do to understand where is the data, classify the data, and decide what you will do with the data. We also have
I think that's a good point.
Yeah, trends with document security as well. Who can actually open a document? We're not quite there. I personally think this is where we're going to be in 4 or 5 years. I will apply the security on a document and will allow certain people to open a document, but there's still a lot of other elements.
I think one of the points that Evgeniy made that I really want to highlight is, people have solved a lot of cybersecurity by just buying a product.
Right.
You can't just buy a product and fix DLP today. You've got to understand where your data is, what data is important to you, and once you define the policies and how you want to deal with data, then you can find a solution to help you handle it the way you want it handled. You can't just go, let's buy a product. It says DLP. I got DLP product. I'm good.
And DLP, one of the products or programs, if say correctly, that impact user directly. If I'm a user and I'm writing a document right now, and I include Visa, MasterCard, credit card numbers in my document, I may have a pop-up that will change automatically my classification of the document, or I may need manually to change the document classification. So it means I need to adjust how I work, or I used to work with the tools I'm using right now for DLP. Or if I share a document with Sean or with Gary, for example, but I got stopped. But Gary needs this document because Gary is trying to close the deal. But my DLP program is trying to stop me. So I'm going to go and scream on all the people like, I need you to disable everything because I'm trying to close the deal right now. So everybody, they will do this. I'll send the document. Gary will close the deal. Nobody will ever bring it on again.
Well,
just stay off.
Isn't that one of the predicates for shadow IT and all that? I mean, people just want to get their stuff done. And do they look at are the users, the end users, the endpoints, do they get grumpy when they hear about cybersecurity?
They do, especially when it slows them down from doing their job.
Yeah, productivity.
That's the balance. The balance is, how do we secure things without impacting too much the users?
Right. And so I want to make sure that we spend the right amount of time focusing on solutions architecture. What do you want to say to amplify some key takeaways about solutions architecture for our audience?
Sean, you want to start, or me?
Well, I think one of the things you want to do is understand where you are with your security journey. Security is a journey. You're not going to go from A to Z right away. There's many steps along the way. So make sure you understand where you are first.
Right. And
then looking at that, what are the next few steps you need to take? Not how do I go from A to Z? Because, like I said, with the DLP example, I bought a technology, I'm done. No, there's a bunch of steps you need to do to prepare to then buy that technology to make it useful in your organization.
So let's build on top of what Sean's saying. Let's say I want to buy a DLP product and I want to create a DLP program, because it's not just a product, it's a program as well. Majority of the time when companies wants to buy something, they're like, I want to buy this because I have this problem. I was like, okay, it's only one problem. Now let's sit down, build all the use cases that you think you need the product or program for. I was like, okay, now let's prioritize them. What must to have and what's nice to have. Now let's think about this. Who will look on this product? Who will actually interact with this product? Where is this product will report or log like a SIM? Where it will be implemented, if it's on-prem, in the cloud, and how it will interact, talking about architecture, with other systems. We just identify I need to interact. Because unfortunately, people sometimes buy a product, like, oh, but I cannot connect it to my SIM. Oh, but it doesn't see because it's in the cloud, or there's a firewall or something else. By looking on all this before and only then going and buying something, you will remove a lot of the problems, and you will not scream, this vendor is not a good vendor. It doesn't work. And I'm trying to be nice right now.
Just jump in too, if I may. I think it's important to look where your organization is now and have a little forethought looking ahead. We talked about DLP, data loss prevention. Just the market, one stat I'm looking at here, by 2026, it's supposed to be about $4 billion. And part of the thing that we have to factor in is the amount of data that's produced. If we just back a couple of years, and it was Cisco put out this IP traffic data, 96,000 petabytes per month in 2016. Contrast that per month to today, where we are, 278,000 petabytes per month. So you could see it's a logarithmic increase in just the amount of data that's out there.
So just for fun, Sean, when you sold the first firewall for Checkpoint, for example, do you remember the throughput on the bandwidth on the firewall, like 10 meg or what?
If that.
Yeah.
I mean, back then we're dealing with, 1, 2, 3 megabyte internet connections.
Still dial-up modems. Yep. Now we have fibers at home with a 1 gigabyte connection. Sometimes people connection from home is faster than the office.
Yep.
That's true. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
remember my first modem, 110K baud, just acoustic modem, plugging the phone in. So old school, slow as molasses.
Old school. Yep.
Yeah. And Bob, is contributing a great analogy here, about building a house, right? It makes sense.
It is. Yeah. Thanks, Bob.
Yeah. Do you know Bob?
Yes, we know Bob.
We know Bob for a long time. Yeah, we worked for like 10 years together at least.
Is he a good guy?
Depend on the day,
All right. Bob,
He's a good guy.
So that's the extent of due diligence for people being on my show. We don't have very high standards. So if you want to send me a note, or if any of you on the audience wants to, be a guest on our show, send a note to Gary at cyberheroescomics.com. And as we're wrapping up, we could just go on for hours and hours. You guys are just awesome. Thank you so much for, who you are and what you do and why you do it. Let me just ask Sean, are there any final thoughts you'd like to share to amplify your message? And how do people get more information about, some of the cool stuff you guys are doing?
Well, first off, thank you for having us. It's been a great discussion here. I've enjoyed Scott and, Evgeniy.
Listen,
we have another meeting with him in a few minutes. So.
Time out. I think you have a man crush on him. I do, because you tease him too much. That's a sign.
We just speak every day. We pretty much speak every day because we do work together every day. So it's been around for the last 14 years.
Might as well have fun.
That's right. I know. If you're not having fun, then why are you doing it? So
you need to have a mix between work and fun, because if you only do one or another, it will never gonna work.
Yeah.
So can't even remember. We got so sidetracked there. Anyway, the best thing to find out what's going on with Herjavec Group is go to our website or follow us on Twitter, the Herjavec Group. It's pretty easy to find us. We've got lots of exciting things. We're growing fast, and just took on a private equity firm to make us even go faster.
Wow, that's great. Evgeniy, do you have any final thoughts to amplify your message, or anything like that?
So first of all, thank you for us. As Sean's mentioned, we really enjoyed the show, and it's a lot of fun.
You're welcome.
I think there is this time for the last 14 months, and we've been all working from home. Shows like you are very important because we're missing the human element. We're not going to conferences anymore, unfortunately, and everybody wants to interact. And even here, people are live, people asking questions. It's way different than just having a podcast or just having a video or conference you watch. So this is definitely contributed to everyone, I think so. I did myself a couple of live shows as well for my audience for the podcast, and we found it's very engaging with people and plan to do more. We're now thinking about maybe do Clubhouse and see what we can do there. It's become popular and popular. From Herjavec Group, as Sean mentioned, our website, our LinkedIn, we post quite a lot. We have an amazing marketing team that always putting very, very interesting information. And also, don't be afraid to engage us on LinkedIn and ask us questions. We will be more than happy to answer.
Wow, that's really great. And I hope our audience takes advantage of those kind offers that you're hearing. These are high-level, very smart people who are mission-driven and want to help. Scott, you have the final word.
All right. Well, again, thank you for having me on as a rapid responder. Great show, and really appreciate the insight there from Sean and Evgeniy, and of course yourself too, and the questions there. And I was just thinking about from a cybersecurity architecture, how important it is that organizations really sit down and think about this, work with a close partner, close the security gap, try to reduce their overall risks, improve the efficiency, as we talked about, and that they really should view it as a multi-layered approach, or oftentimes it's referred to as a holistic approach, to really improve that efficiency within an organization. But it has to be done. You can't just talk about it. And it's been great conversation and great work. Congratulations, certainly to yourself there, Gary, on this great show. And then all that the Herjavec Group is doing to keep us all safer there. Really, thank you. And to find out more about me, you can go to my website is bvsystems.com. We make wireless threat detection tools. And then more personally about the stuff I do in cybersecurity is simply my name, scottschober.com. But thanks again, guys.
No, you're terrific. And as I mentioned earlier, the Costa behind me, we did a show recently on e-waste. You know, it's very important from a cybersecurity standpoint, as you know, to handle e-waste very well, but also on sustainability, you know, recycling and stuff like that. So this is not something I've shown many people for obvious reasons. Oh, we're going to the return area. Okay, so here we go. It's easy peasy to recycle at Best Buy. Ah. Mission accomplished.
Nice.
Listen,
Great.
I don't know what the code of ethics on air is, but my wife thinks I'm batshit. You know, so and you know what? I have a feeling you guys have that too in your own different ways. So, anyways, on that note, on behalf of a grateful digital universe, thanks for being real life, you know, unsung cyber heroes, and stay tuned for future episodes of the show. Have a great day.
Stay safe.
Thanks, everybody.
You.
Thanks, guys.